Welcome to Social Aloe Ministries, where we are committed to glorifying God while exposing the devil. When the Holy Spirit of the Lord lets you know who a person is, you don't need to wait for further evidence. That is enough. Because the thing is, you don't need to see the fruit on a tree to know what kind of tree it is. And Jesus, he told us that we know people by their fruits. But there's also an example of how he judged a tree based on the expected fruit. In Matthew 7, starting verse 15, the Lord said, "Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree can..." The Holy Spirit's bringing up things to me. For example, in the case of false prophets, you don't necessarily have to wait for certain things to realize that the person is a false prophet. As soon as you discern it, take the appropriate actions. And since I'm speaking about trees and using that analogy, if you go to an orchard where there are apple trees, if all the trees are apple trees, it's like saying birds of a feather flock together. So if you know someone's a false prophet and that person has cohorts who are claiming to be prophets also, then more than likely those individuals are all going to be false prophets. Because one thing I know, prophets don't tolerate false prophets. Prophets do not tolerate false prophets. But it continues. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit. Neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. But again, you don't have to wait until you see the fruit if you can identify the tree. What kind of tree it is, that's kind of fruit it's going to bear. An apple tree is going to bring forth apples. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits ye shall know them. But as a part of discernment, it's not just about the fruit. It's also about the roots and the tree. In Mark 11, starting in verse 12, "And on the morrow, when they were come from Bethany, he was hungry. And seeing a fig tree afar off, having leaves, he came, if haply he might find anything thereon. And when he come to it, he found nothing but leaves, for the time of figs was not yet. And Jesus answered and said unto it, No man eat fruit of thee hereafter forever. And his disciples heard it." And skipping to verse 20. "And in the morning, as they passed by, they saw the fig tree dried up from the roots." So Jesus, he saw the fig tree from afar off. And because it was a fig tree, he expected it to have figs, but it did not. So it's kind of like seeing someone who is professing to be a minister of Christ, and whenever you realize a person is not a minister of Christ, getting away from the person. Jesus cursed the fig tree so that no one would eat from it again. So when you realize a person is not serving the Lord, do not partake in that person's fruit. An evil fruit or evil tree brings forth evil fruit. In the Garden of Eden, there were two trees of interest. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You can call that the devil's tree, even though he didn't create it. Then there was a tree of life. You can call that Jesus' tree. Adam and Eve had a choice of which one to eat from. And I say a choice because the Lord commanded them not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But the devil persuaded them to. Persuaded Eve to let her see how good the fruit looked. And she ended up eating it and giving it to Adam. And they both fell. Thing is, Jesus is, he is the way, the truth, and the life. No one goes to the Father except through him. Jesus is also the true vine. So a person who is serving the Lord are going to bear fruits that represent the Lord. And you don't always have to wait for their fruit if you know the tree that that person is connected to. Is a person serving God or the devil? And you don't have to wait. The first sign, you will know. And one of the ways to know, in Galatians 5, starting verse 22, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. So does a person demonstrate those traits? Now, there are people who are good actors and they can pretend to demonstrate those traits. And one of the ways you'll know a person's true fruit is to tell a person no or not yet. See how he or she reacts. Or call the individual by his or her name as opposed to using a title. See how the person reacts. What do we call the Son of God? Jesus. Jesus made himself of no reputation. For as much as the Lord has done on the cross, before he even got to the cross, the thing about him getting off his throne in heaven, putting on human flesh, and humbling himself in such a way, that is a tremendous sacrifice in itself. Getting down from his throne and taking human form, subjecting himself to every temptation known to man. Humility. Meekness, one of the fruit of the Spirit. So again, for as much as you can tell based on a person's fruit, once you can identify the tree, you don't have to wait around for the fruit if you know it's a bad tree. If the tree isn't a part of the true vine, meaning Jesus, you already know what kind of fruit it's going to produce. So yes, look at the fruit. And if you can't see the fruit, just look at the tree and you will get a very good idea of what to expect. God bless you.